Last Passenger is written and directed by Omid Nushin. Doug Ray Scott stars. Lael?
Well, if you want a calling card, director Omid Nushin has one with this film. This is a pretty darn entertaining genre picture, basically. It's set entirely on a train, a train going through England, like a red-eye train, if you can imagine, an overnight train, and takes a little while to get going. There's a few characters. They begin relationships. Key character is played by Doug Ray Scott, a doctor. He's traveling with his 9-year-old son. He's widowed. There's a lovely young woman who begins sort of a flirtatious banter with him. As things go on, the night goes on, the train empties out. And before they know it, the train is speeding out of control. The brakes are gone. The driver seems to be unresponsive. The conductor is disappeared. He's basically dead. And it's a suspense thriller. It's a mystery. It's also, this exercise in space. Beautifully shot, I thought. A lot of really interesting things done with the framing, looking through windows. It's shot in widescreen, so you have the sense of the vastness of the screen, but the tightness of the space at the same time. So it's very claustrophobic, yet it's really kind of a psychological film as well, because there's all this kind of interplay between the characters. And at one point I found myself trying to guess, well, is it one of these? Is it one of these 6 who's responsible for it? And then I thought it did kind of devolve at the end a little bit into like a Poseidon Adventure-y kind of thing, which bugged me.
A little tiny bit. But I mean, what I like about it is it's not like Speed or most of the American exercises like this, where there's some master criminal who's masterminding this, where there's an atomic bomb, where you're gonna assassinate a world leader. None of that. It's not about that. It's about the people who are caught in this scenario. And so it spends a lot of time very early on immersing you in their relationships. And some of it feels very cliche for the genre. Yes, he's a doctor, and he's got his little son, and he's a widower, and here's this woman with him. And, oh, well, you're a widower. And you kind of start to roll your eyes a little bit. It's like, okay, I see what you're doing. But then the characters are so well drawn, and they're so well directed and so well acted that it really draws you past all of that. And he is so good. Omid Nushin is so good at balancing the human stuff, the character stuff, with all of the adrenaline stuff. And it's a slow build, but it builds, and it's very effective, and it never lets up.
And I love the way that he delineated the characters with, without a lot of dialogue or there's not a lot of extra stuff there. No. There's this Russian guy, Jan, who seems like a thug at first, but turns out is an engineering student. And then there's this older guy who seems cranky and curmudgeonly, but he's got a whole backstory. And then there's Lindsay Duncan,
who's hardly in it, but who's wonderful
she's
for the moment she's in it.
And it's really every character, every actor contributes something. It was really entertaining. I mean, it just, I did think it kind of went off the rails a little towards the end, but
I think we have 3 films right in a row between Blue Ruin, Last Passenger, and Locke, where you have some very, very efficient direction, where there are long stretches, very, very effectively put together. All the screws are being tightened at exactly the right pace, and these are
certainly, along with Locke being an experiment in constricted space, this was another really interesting, Hitchcockian lifeboaty kind of thing. But
feels like a much bigger and more expensive film than it is.
It does. It does feel a lot bigger and more expensive. And I hope people go see this one. It was fun.
I do too.
It was really a lot of fun.
Passengers on an overnight London train. Last Passenger is the film. Omid Nushin, the writer-director, Doug Ray Scott stars. And if you want to see it, you're going to have to take the trek to Long Beach, where it'll be at Edwards Stadium 26 Theaters.